Yeah, it's okay. No worries. I don't even know if it's coming through yet. But yeah, it should be with Prepper's perspective on DLive. I've got Mooney here with me. Just ask a question, we'll answer it.
Yeah.
But the room, on DLive, it doesn't show you how many people are actually in the room. So I don't even know if anyone's in here. Yeah. Well, there is a little eye icon. I suppose
okay.
that's from people who are watching. I'm just not sure how quickly it updates.
Okay. So is there a number indication, or does it just let you know if there's anybody at all watching?
It's just it just tells you who's watching, but I don't know how actually accurate that is. But yeah. So what's going on in the USA today then, or recently?
Well, as far as local news, I'm not sure. I've been locked up in my church setting up a network for the past. Well, I came in at about 4 in the afternoon yesterday, and I've been here since. Except for a brief nap, I took it home. So for quite a while, but I can tell you, as far as my little janitor's closet up here, it's going pretty smooth.
All right, cool. Not much going on really here in Great Britain, but we had that snow apocalypse beast from the east thing. That
Yeah,
kind of
I heard about that.
yeah, that kind of messed things up for a bit.
Were the roads terrible? Are you prepared for that kind of a snowfall?
Well, in the past we were really good at handling this sort of thing, but
Mm-hmm.
it just seems that nobody knows how to handle it now. The country just basically stops if one snowflake lands on the infrastructure, so it's not ideal when there's
Yeah,
bad weather, but
I've I can tell you we experienced the same thing here in the States, more so in the southern states like Texas, especially. If there's a dusting of snow on the roads, just anything light, schools close, businesses close, even people driving over ice, it seems like they'll floor it just to get over the patch.
oh yeah, we get that here. Yeah, people just drive and they don't consider the conditions on the roads, and
Hmm.
it's really bad. That's the type of thing that either people are too cautious or they're not cautious enough, and they just drive like there's nothing wrong with the roads, but there is, because there's a load of snow on it, and ice, but yeah, they don't really consider the conditions really. But yeah, I mean, other countries they deal with a lot more snowfall and they deal with it a hell of a lot better.
Hmm.
And I was saying to prep a
Well,
vet,
I guess.
though, the mainstream media hypes things up and gets people all in a real fearful mood about the weather. So they just try and rush through it and get to where they're going.
Yeah. Yeah. You see that a lot in driving, a lot of the first accidents. I mean, even here in the States where we have regular snowfall every year. The first snowfall of the year, you can always count on there being 2 or 3 accidents wherever you're going. I mean, within a week's time of that first snowfall, you'll see guardrails busted down here and there. Um, Not to say everybody just drives like a loon when it's at that first snowfall, but you've got drivers who've just got their license it's their first snowfall. They may not have driven with their parents previously over the snow, over ice in, wide parking lots that just don't have the experience. And it definitely shows here. First experiences with snow. If you're not prepared, if you haven't thought about it, if you haven't learned from experienced drivers on how to operate your vehicle on those roads under that type of icy or snowy condition, then sometimes people just take it on their own, and accidents happen.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I guess something newsworthy that has happened in the States, if anything, I suppose. I mean, there's been legislation talk of allowing teachers to arm themselves if they choose to, while they're on the job in the schools. And there's been a lot of talk back and forth, and I kind of find myself resting in the middle because both sides are making good points right now. There are people saying, if there are teachers who are licensed to carry a weapon and they pass, psychological evaluations, if they don't have a history of, exploding in the classroom, um, or outside of the classroom, obvious background checks, you know, uh, as well as additional safety and, making sure they're not going to pop off and are accurate with their firearm, proficient firearm users, and, they practice gun safety, that they should be allowed to carry. And I guess kind of the counterpoint to that has been, why would we expect somebody who's spent their lives learning how to teach our kids to also protect them? To always have that in the back of their mind. And I can see where both sides have a very good point, that, there may be a lot of teachers that love their students and would want to protect them, but, is it fair to let them take on that extra responsibility and then expect them to do both?
Well, it's not really an extra responsibility, because when a student is on a school or a campus, the teachers already have a duty of care. So it just depends, whether they're prepared to go that extra step, and actually defend them, like in a life or death situation. Because they may say that's from the teacher's perspective. They may say, well, we're here to teach and we do have a duty of care, but we don't have a duty to die for these children. But then maybe some of the teachers actually would be prepared to. Because then it's not just the students, it's also the other people on their faculty. So it's the other teachers that they'll be considering protecting as well. If you have like a core group of teachers, like a on-site militia or something on the school, then they'll be considering everybody who's on the site, including themselves. Because I'm sure as shit they don't want a shooter to come on campus and end their own life.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I mean, I honestly, I personally carry a firearm, being from the United States, in a state where it allows me to do that. I absolutely take advantage of that. But in preparing scenario, maybe somebody just getting really riled up. There are people that will go from 1 to 100 at the blink of an eye. That's what I prepare for. But when I look at teachers in a classroom being allowed to carry the biggest responders to any type of situation. If somebody comes in school with a firearm, or somebody has brought a firearm to school, whichever. The problem for me comes in when the police arrive at the scene, in tactical gear. They're safe. They've got their rifles. How does an officer in the moment see that? That puts a lot of responsibility on the officer to be able to determine in a split second, okay, is this faculty and someone who's a good guy, or is this guy with a gun here that I see the bad guy with the gun? And really, you have kind of a split second to make that decision. And how are they going to know, if it's a random shooter, or if the person who's going on a tirade is one of the staff or faculty who's been determined allowed to carry and has since experienced some trauma, and perhaps had a mental break? Especially when you get a lot of these tips being called in from neighbors in the surrounding area who are just hearing gunfire coming from the direction of a school.
Well, there was a guy, and I think he had a burglar in his property, or there was some sort of home invasion, and he was armed, obviously, and he had the burglar detained, and he had the gun pointing at him, and then the police turned up. I think it was by his front door or something. The police turned up, even though it was the homeowner that was detaining the home invader or the burglar or whatever he was doing. He was just stood at his door with the gun pointed at the felon. The police showed up and they just shot him, the homeowner.
I believe it. There's no way. If anybody here, anybody listening, if you look at yourself in the mirror right now, nobody's wearing a shirt that says "good guy" on it. I guarantee. It makes it really hard for law enforcement to do their job correctly when there are more guns in the fight. That is something that I've acknowledged. It's something I think about while I carry. It's something that was brought up to me by a firearms instructor who, honestly, I'll rep him all day. I just went and got another stack of business cards from him so that I can hand them out if people need training. When there's any type of, when the police are going to arrive, there are a lot of things that you can do to kind of protect yourself, like identifying yourself on the 911 call. I'm wearing this, I've got my firearm. When the police arrive, I'll forfeit the firearm, so that they have a clear description of, okay, who's our victim here in this situation, and can determine best how to handle it. Because it could have been a psycho in the situation that you provided who had tied a homeowner down and was holding him at gunpoint. It's very hard to tell because, of all of the background that situation could have had. It really is tragic. And there have been instances of police doing raids and simply having the wrong address, and somebody believing that they were being, burglarized. Somebody was breaking down their door on the phone with 911. Somebody's breaking into my house. He had his firearm ready, and when they breached the door, he was shot immediately because he had a firearm out. There were shady things in that situation. The police didn't announce their presence. They didn't identify themselves as the police. There were failures on both sides. The man was not on the phone with dispatch when this was going on. It was a very quick situation, ended in, loss of life, which is tragic always. But yeah, that was kind of the argument against, having armed teachers is how do we safely allow the police to do their job without putting these teachers who would love to protect their kids, at risk of loss of life and maybe even injury.
Yeah. So moving on, this month is Check Your Preps month. If anyone is listening to the recording or live, it's a twice yearly campaign to check your preps. So Mooney, have you started checking your preps, or how often do you check them?
Honestly, if I were going to tell you, since I've only been starting to build a bank of preps in the past couple months, but on my mace, I've checked my mace recently. I'd say I go through my supplies, if I can, about every 3 or 4 months, because the last thing that anybody wants to happen is, to become complacent and then not have something when you need it, whether it's bandages, whether it's an antiseptic, your water goes stale. You don't want to end up. And I actually ended up trying one of the ration bars. It seems like it's some sort of compressed grain and honey.
How was it?
It was all right. I wouldn't label it a ration bar. I'd label it kind of a don't starve bar. I'd eat it if I had to. I would probably stretch it out as much as I can. It was only earlier today, so I'm kind of waiting to see, what this does to my systems. If it would be more worth it in the long run to get something with more fiber, some more sustenance that would be easier on the digestive system. Basically, so you don't end up, I don't want to get too graphic, but in the end, you don't want to make a mess of yourself.
Yeah, you don't want
in a survival situation. So
you don't want things coming out of both ends, like.
Right.
There was somebody linked a Steam article of a gentleman. I think he's doing like 30 days on prep food, like rations and things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have to check that out.
Right.
I think he's on day 27, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have to see that and see what he's experiencing doing that. I think he's having like mountain house and all that jazz.
I've heard good things about Mountain House. It's not, there are a lot of these prepper meals, and this is an important thing as well that I hadn't thought about. A lot of these high calorie packs, month supply, year supply of food, there are some of these brands that simply get their calorie count by adding heaps of sugar and, cornstarch, corn syrup to their product, and in the end you're getting the calories, but you're not getting the carbs that you would need to go with that. You're not getting any real sustenance. You're just staying alive, basically. No way to live, and in the end probably not going to be very useful if you need to do a lot of if you're gathering lumber, for example, to keep warm if it's a cold time of the year, or if you need to construct shelter, or potentially even fight for your life in a bug out scenario. You want to make sure that the food you have will sustain it.
Yeah, I've heard good things about Mountain House as well. I haven't tried any myself yet, but they seem to source the ingredients from, I think they're non-GMO things like that. They try and source the most organic that they can.
That's good. I had an aunt that would very, very much stress non-GMO, gluten-free, all of these different things. And, for the longest time, I just thought she was being ridiculous. But at the same time, I've also been considered ridiculous for things I consider normal, like, carrying mace on me when I can't carry a firearm. And when I can carry a firearm, always carrying mace. Preparing for, safety situations by keeping a first aid kit on me. People have said, you're paranoid, you're this, you're that, you're losing it. But
hey, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
right, exactly. Especially when it comes to having a first aid kit that could stop a serious bleed and save somebody's life. That's where, I cut myself a break. And in that same respect, now that I'm realizing, some of the GMOs, you have the high salt content, pesticide, these things can shorten your life. Why should I look at that any differently than something that could save my life? So I've kind of come onto that train of thought a little bit. I'm considering that more when I buy supplies for prepping. You asked me earlier how often I check my preps. How about yourself?
Well, I mean, it's changed. I mean, in the beginning when I was prepping, I was like, I checked it every month, sometimes every week. And I don't check it as much now. I'll check it all in stages. So I've got my preps. I'm mostly about bugging in at first. And I've got my preps divided between the rooms in the property that I'm in. So in the kitchen, that's food and water preparation. So I've got all my water preps in there. And sometimes what I'll do is just once a month, I'll just pick an area of my preps. So water and food. So I'll just go in there and I'll check it. I'll make sure all my water filters are working, do some maintenance on them. I'll rotate the water that I've got stored. I mean, there's no need to check them as often as what I was doing. I realized I check it. If I check it every 1 or 2 weeks, then nothing's changed. So it was too much. It was too often, and I didn't want to get like prepper burnout with checking my preps.
Right. Burnout's always a thing. I've experienced it learning about computers. But how about this? To someone who's kind of new to prepping, like myself, I heard you say bugging in. What's the difference, would you say, between bugging in and bugging out? What does prepping for bug in look like, as opposed to what I'm more familiar with, bugging out, where, you have a go bag, you have, things stashed back in transportation?
Well, I mean, one thing I'm doing this year is I'm really evaluating my preps and I'm going to change it all. So I've actually been thinking about this recently, and what I've boiled it down to is, and what I've said in the past about bugging in is that you spend most of your time at home. So that includes like sleeping. You're at work maybe it's 8 or 9 hours, but the majority of the time you're at home. So if anything's going to happen where you need your preps, then statistically speaking, it's going to happen when you're at home. So bugging in is really just what I'm doing is, it's like the bigger, more, it's like the luxurious options. Like if I'm filtering water, I'll have a Berkey. But I'm not going to carry a Berkey with me when I'm bugging out. I'm going to carry like a Sawyer Mini, So for
Yeah.
me, the bugging in is like all the static options, the luxury items. So Berkey, I mean, you can go ridiculous levels with things, obviously, but you're gonna store all your heavy tinned food in bugging in, and you're gonna take like your much lighter meals when you're bugging out, because you simply can't carry everything. I mean,
Right.
and also bugging in is, I mean, for me, it's the first option because you've already established a home base. You're already at home. It's your base of operations already. So for me, bugging in should be your primary option. And then it's only when that option fails or you can't get to your bugging in option that you have like your, your bug out bag with you, so that you've got that option with you if you're not at home.
Very good. So
No, go on.
So you said you have the bug out bag with you. Is that something you would recommend carrying, anywhere you go that isn't home? Just by that language, that's kind of how it came across.
Well, I'd have an EDC pack or some sort of EDC options, but whenever I leave the house, I don't take my bug out bag with us. It's just not feasible. It's just,
I figured not.
it's too heavy. I mean, I've got items that I carry with me, everyday carry. The idea is that I'm never too far away to be able to get home. All my focus and all my energy. If something was to happen and I'm out of the property, all of my energy would go into getting back to my property so that I can assess the situation when I'm home, see whether bugging in is the option, or I can grab my bug out bag. My EDC items are designed just to get me to my property.
Very good. Very good. So your EDC bag is what you would carry for every day, and then ensuring that you're able to get back to your property. Um, let's talk about our EDC packs.
Yeah, I mean, well, for me, it's really simple. I just have items which fit on me, on my person. So for me, I just carry, obviously, the things that most people carry, like a phone and a wallet. Just make sure that the phone's charged, got credit on it to ring. Just very minimal. But if I'm out of the property for more than an hour, I'll take like a bottle of water, first aid kit, some sort of gas mask,
Really?
power bank for
I
my
didn't know about
phone.
a gas mask.
Well, I mean, your breathing is the most important. I mean, say something was to happen
Right.
and it's affecting the air quality, then how are you gonna protect yourself from that? I mean, things do happen with air quality wherever you can be. Something might happen, and your breathing is so important to the rest of your bodily functions that you've got to protect it initially, or else you're just going to have problems which might not be very apparent to begin with, but there may be things that build up over time, and you may be affected by it a lot later on.
Bringing that up, that makes a lot of sense. I've got at home, as part of my kind of bug in area, I guess you'd say, one of the full face, double vented gas masks so that you can put two full canisters on the mask to increase your respiration, what you can take in at one time, filtered. And it has one of the full visors over it, so you don't have a limited field of vision. But at the same time, I don't keep a clean shaven face. So at the end of the day, really, I mean, it will be better than nothing. Uh, but as far as effectiveness goes, I'm pretty sure I'm lacking in what I can be doing, what I could be doing.
Well, I'm the same. I don't keep a clean face all the time. Um, but then again, I mean, it does reduce the effectiveness of the gas mask, obviously. But I mean, most of the problems that you're probably going to face, if anything was to happen, is going to be pretty much like dust thrown up in the atmosphere. I doubt you're going to come across an agent which is particularly tiny and needs a mask with a real high degree of protection. I mean, initially it's just to get yourself from the immediate place where something's happening and just get yourself like a few hundred meters away from it. But I mean, I should keep my face a lot more cleanly shaven than what I do, particularly when I am carrying it. That is something I do need to do just to increase the effectiveness of the gas mask. But I mean, possibility and chances of me ever needing to use them at gas mask probably very slim. Chances that my beard's going to compromise it enough where it's completely ineffective, probably even less of a chance. So
Right.
I've got something on me and most people have nothing. So
Exactly.
I've already my chances of not being affected in a serious way are already so far above everyone else's that I consider that to be completely adequate, because you could go too far. You could be in the mirror with your Bic shaving your face every single day so your cheeks are like a baby's bum.
Yeah.
And you might never ever, you could be doing that for years and you might never ever put your gas mask on. And then
Right.
so I mean, like I say to people, prepping shouldn't take over your life, and it shouldn't completely dictate the decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis. So you could take it to the nth level and be completely clean shaven. You've always got like your combat or some sort of tactical gear on you. But then again, that's it's probably unhealthy to have it like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that for sure. And I mean, um, something I do carry that I hadn't thought about as far as respiration. Uh, if worst comes to worst, I at least have a few medical masks that I carry in my first aid kit that may help to reduce some type of dust or pollutant effect, or bacterial. They do have an antibacterial agent in the layers. And this is in just a tiny minimalist, I've got a few bandages, a gauze pad, and a wrap in there, along with some vinyl gloves and a medical mask.
Yeah, well, I mean, even that's more than what most people have. I mean, what have you got to protect your eyes, though?
To protect my eyes, I've got two hands. That's that's it as far as right now goes. Um,
Well, I mean, even that,
but
you could just take some swimming goggles with you. I mean, they're better than nothing, but
yeah.
they're very minimalist. Just some swimming goggles.
Well, to protect my eyes from any type of dust, I mean, I've got some goggles at home that are not quite swimming goggles, but would partially do the job. They've got very small vents, a few very small vents, just to keep the insides from fogging up. But then we come to this, and this is something I've thought about before. You know, if you're prepped, And it comes to something where you have to physically, you pull it out, people see it, whether it's food, whether it's you know um, personal protective equipment. How how do you deal with the fact that your target level has gone from, you're a gray man, to you're the guy with the stuff that people want now, and they know that your stuff is going to keep them alive if they get it? That's something I've always, had trouble with in deciding what to carry. I may be able to take a medical mask and like put my hand over it to kind of mask the fact that I'm protected in some manner. Um,
I
but
mean,
it's just one of the things that.
I mean, that's something that I've thought about as well. But to be honest, I mean, you just want to get the hell out of that area as quickly as possible, and then the chances of that reduce drastically, anyways. But
That's true.
and if you find that you're in a confined space, I mean, just say this, right? You're in a confined area, you're trapped, you can't get out, but you're with other people. You
Right.
don't have to get this stuff out straight away, though. Yeah, I mean, you can wait. You can go 3 weeks without food. I mean,
Right.
3 days without water. Without water completely, though, you'll start feeling the effects of it after a full day. So if you can just wait until people start feeling the effects, and it drastically reduces their cognitive abilities and their physical abilities. So you just want to keep yourself topped up, and then you're automatically in a much better position to defend yourself as well. So just wait until everyone else starts. Wait until everyone else just starts. They start wobbling and feeling dizzy and things, and then tuck into your preps.
Mm-hmm.
Maintain a dominant position. I mean, yeah, help people out where you can, but I mean,
Yeah.
you can't help people out if you've been beaten up and ransacked. So I mean, you could talk about different situations and theorize about these sorts of things, but that's just the way I do it. I mean, what I've got on me is just to get me out of the area, so I don't have to think about stopping someone from taking my gear, because I'm not going to give it up. That's for sure.
Right. And at the end of the day, you can't afford to when it comes down to surviving whatever it is. And that's a very good point about not letting the prepping dictate your life. The chance of needing an airtight seal on a mask, you know, we're talking at that point about chemical warfare, which
It's very
not
slim. It's
likely,
very, very slim.
not yeah, not likely in the West. Once you get west of you know Syria, basically, uh,
Yeah,
very very slim.
during the Second World War in Great Britain, they distributed civilian gas masks to every civilian. Every civilian had with them all the time. It just became natural.
Mm-hmm.
When you left the property, you always took your gas mask with you. But there was no chemicals ever dropped on Great Britain, so for years people were carrying these things around, even though the chances of it happening were, the world was at war. The chances of it happening was drastically higher, and chemical weapons were used during the Second World War on both sides.
Much higher.
But people in Great Britain were carrying their masks around, and they never needed them, but they didn't know that at the time, obviously. But the threat was there.
Precisely. Yeah, and that's, what I've heard from you guys, what I've heard from other people. Adapt your preps, make them fit your situation.
Yeah, definitely. Just adapt to your location, your particular lifestyle, even.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's something. I mean, I've even kind of integrated my first aid kit with kind of an emergency EDC. And that sounds kind of funny, but I'll kind of, expand on that. Um, I have kind of a lipstick sized battery pack that, after speaking with you and Prepper Vet on the last DLive I was on, they suggested made total sense. I've got one of those batteries. I carry my first aid kit, which includes 8 ounces of water. Normally for flushing a wound, which I update that. I empty it, resanitize it, fill it back up about every week and a half. I keep it in a cool place. You know, Steel canteen. I make sure that it's not gone to rust on the inside. I carry the bandages. That's the part of my first aid kit. I went over that. Um, but a lot of these things could be adapted to my needs. So, say for instance, I'm confined to a space, there's dust particulate in the air outside. I can't realistically leave and get to my home. I've got some water. I've got the charge for my phone. I can use the water to keep my senses up. And I may even consider, because they're so small, that prepper food bar that I was talking about, it's about, oh, forgive me, I'm going to use imperial measurements here, but about, I'd say 7 inches by 4, 7 inches by 5. Uh, and that could slide right into a pack, and that's a full day's worth of sustenance, whether it's pure sugar or not. It's going to help you from feeling the effects of hunger. If you can find a spot to kind of hunker down, lock yourself away from crowds and, just survive for that time until either help arrives or, you can leave safely. Uh, that's what I tend to keep on me. And I have plans to get a $100 a year cell phone plan where, anytime I need to use a phone, where I can carry a secondary phone that will always be charged, I would be able to use that. Uh, for example, car accident or uh, just an instance where my phone has died, or say I've fallen, I've been hit by a vehicle, and my smartphone has taken damage that another one may not, like a flip phone. I can use a secondary phone to make a call if necessary.
Yeah, I mean, battery packs are good because, I mean, your phone might be fine, but somebody else might need to make a call and theirs is flat. First aid kit, I mean, I've got stuff in my first aid kit. I won't be the most proficient at using it, but there might be someone else at the scene who is, and they can use my first aid kit. So that's something that I'm probably going to adapt my first aid kit a little bit this year as well. My IFAC. Probably going to put a bit more specialist things in there, but it's things that I don't know how to use properly. I mean, but somebody else might be able to, so I'll just have it for them.
How available is first aid training in Britain?
Oh, it's very available. I mean, you can just do it yourself. Sometimes in the street they hold classes, and you can just join and do it in the street. Yeah.
Wow.
Sometimes St. John's Ambulance will be on like a main shopping street, and they'll just do like a quick course on CPR.
That's incredible. Over in the States, they hold classes, but to get certified in first aid, it can be expensive. It can range from 50 United States dollars up to 100, depending on, what your certificate's going to encompass, whether it's, simply CPR only, or if it's CPR and first aid trauma. It, it can get pretty expensive. That's very interesting. But, after thinking about it, I mean, Britain, UK, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there are more often kind of blitz attacks on the street than there are here. Where here it's more of a a mass shooting scenario on the street in Great Britain. It seems more applicable, like public services kind of filled a need there. Uh,
Well, I mean, stuff happens 24 hours a day here. I mean, it's not any worse or less than anywhere else, really. I mean, but I mean, they're even starting to put defibrillators in the street. So if you come across someone who's having a heart attack, then there's a code on the defibrillator box. You tell the operator which defibrillator that you're next to, and they give you a code to open it and take the defib out. And it's just one of these ones where you just basically open it up, and then the defibrillator just tells you what to do. Basically, you just follow the instructions. So even somebody who hasn't even taken basic first aid, they can operate these defibrillators, and they could potentially save someone who's having like a heart attack or something. So they're starting to put them on the streets of Great Britain now. You'll see them in like on the side of a building, and there's just a secure container where the defib's inside.
That's incredible.
So anybody can do first aid on anyone. It's just I mean, some people have like, some people might try things that they've seen on TV, but I don't think they would in the heat of the moment. But
no,
at least I would hope not. But yeah, I mean,
no.
It's really available. You can do first aid courses through your work, your employer. They do first aid at work courses. You can go on for about a week, and then you're certified as like a first aider.
That's very proactive. I don't think I've seen anything like that anywhere else. There are private businesses in the United States where they'll have AEDs set, staged throughout the building. But as expensive as those are, I'm kind of surprised that the government would be able to foot the bill for placing them on. How far away did you say they'd be? Do they have kind of an estimate on that?
Well, I mean, I think they're probably every few hundred meters, maybe. Or
And they're not cheap.
I mean, they're getting cheaper, but yeah, they are quite expensive still. For a good one, you're talking a few £100. But I mean, they'll probably put them in the most concentrated areas. So, in the center of town, you might have 5. But that's spread across quite a large area, really. But that's 5 more than what they used to be, because they never used to have them in the streets. It's only very, very recently in Britain that they've started doing this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm kind of on a security committee for our church, and we've talked about this, and we've looked through options of getting these and getting a good one, getting one that's certified with good customer service, where they'll come out and maintenance it every so often, like they do with fire extinguishers. We were looking at it. It was going to run us approximately $1,000 or more, just to have one installed and keep it maintenance. So
I think it'll become mandatory soon. Every employer in Great Britain, it'll become mandatory that they have at least one. I think in maybe within 5 years or so, it'll just be something that they have, as well as a first aid kit.
Yeah, I know that right now first aid kits are mandatory. I had the opportunity to look through the one that we keep in the kitchen and when I say here, I mean still at the church. It's been used, which I'm glad to see that it's seen use and it's helped people. Having it on hand has helped people. Uh, but the biggest thing about first aid kits, always, and I'm sure you can attest to this, is keeping them stocked. I think they're almost out of triple antibiotic cream. They've run short on a few of these, a few of the bandages, dressing, securing, gauze strips.
Well,
I've just found an opportunity to top those up.
Yeah, we don't keep medications in first aid kits here.
No?
No, you can't put medications in because you for one thing, it's very unlikely that you're ever going to give someone. I mean, if you know for sure someone's having a heart attack, then you could try and get some aspirin from somewhere. But medication, you're not allowed to keep in a first aid kit in a workplace because you don't know what conditions people have. You don't know what allergies people have. Your first response might be to give somebody something, but people are allergic to like paracetamols, and there might be an ingredient in a cream, even plasters. The very low allergic brands of plasters, because some people have allergies to plasters, so you have to use and even gloves, when you put your personal protective equipment on, like your gloves.
Right.
There are people that are allergic to the material that certain gloves are made out of, so you have to get the ones that people aren't allergic to.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, medications. I mean, I've got medications, like some basic things in my IFAC, but I personally don't take anything. It's all for if I come across a heart attack, somebody having a heart attack. I've got aspirin in my IFAC, but I never take aspirin. I never take paracetamol. I don't take any over-the-counter drugs. It's just for if someone else needs it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that as far as pain management, I used to have headaches regularly, and take a Tylenol for them to help mitigate the pain while I got some sleep. I think it was often due to not having enough sleep, but it's probably been 8 years since I've had a Tylenol or aspirin, other than just a few for a couple days while I started new work at a factory. You start a new job, you have aches and pains where you didn't know you even had muscle, where you'd never even thought about it before. So just getting through those first few days, but yeah, it makes sense to have aspirin. Hadn't thought about a heart attack. I think I'd just end up feeling helpless otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, as far as medication in my first aid, it's just the basic stuff. I mean, it really is. But then again, I change it up depending on the seasons. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in the summer months, you're more susceptible to like wasp stings and things. So I have a wasp and sting ointment, but I take it out in the winter because there's no point. There's no wasps and there's no bees around, so
Right.
it just adapt it depending on the seasons a little bit, but pretty much everything in there pretty much stays the same. Um, I mean, it's like you adapt your clothing on the seasons.
Hmm. So, as you mentioned before, check your preps month. How do you go about checking your preps? Do you have a checklist that you go through? Do you just tend to each room in your house?
I just I
Personally, when
just
I check,
I just do it room by
just
room.
just room by room.
Yeah, I got it sectioned off. So kitchen, food and water, bathroom. It's got an eye wash station in there. Well, it's got eye wash things.
Oh, nice.
So I check them because that's where I'd probably wash someone or my own eyes out. Bedroom has everything like my bug out. My bedroom's got all my bug out gear in. So if anything was to happen, I only need to go into one room to get everything I need. I don't need to go rushing around the rest of the
Good
property
idea.
because in the kitchen I've got all the big stuff like the Berkey. I'm not going to take the Berkey with us.
Right.
I've got the portable ones in the bug out bag.
Right.
But what do you? How do you have them? Do you just have them all in one room, or do you have them spread out?
So, as far as bug out, I don't really have that many preps. What I do have, I've got a SOG tactical vest, simply because it has MOLLE straps on it, and I can tie bags off to it, pouches. I don't have a full hiking backpack, so the ability to strap, my hammock to me, that is essential. It fits snug on me, but it's also a vest that's made with Velcro adjustments. I wouldn't want to make those at night, but if I'm losing weight hiking around and working about, I can adjust it to fit me. As we go through whatever bug out situation we're in. But honestly, right now, no, they're not in one room. I've kind of more or less got a list that I go through. I need to check this. We've got kind of a small house, so keeping them all in one room is kind of difficult because we don't have quite the space for it. I've got a deep closet where I'll keep several things. I've got a machete that I can strap onto a belt. Uh, the first aid kit that I have, that isn't my individual first aid kit. It's built to hold more, you know, suit four people with gunshot injuries. Honestly, because that's what we were prepping a response for at the church. It's got straps that I could thread through that MOLLE on my vest. And then that's something else, I have hands free for anything else that I would need to carry. So, uh, yeah, as far as bug out, normally I check it by using it. I use it regularly. I have a solar speaker. It's the Rugged Ruckus. I think you can still buy them online for about $80 to $100. They charge their own 1650 milliamp hour battery with a built-in solar panel, I think in about 5 hours. And then you can charge your phone off of that. Any USB device you can charge off of it. It has a couple of hoops, so I could even strap that to my back. And it also acts as a speaker. I don't know if I said that or not. It's a solar panel on a Bluetooth speaker.
All right.
So, yeah, I don't know if that'll see a whole lot of use in a bug out situation, but the ability to kind of have a charger for a device of any kind at night seemed like it would be useful. So,
Yeah, I thought about Bluetooth speakers before and bugging out, and the only use I could see them for is if you have like a phone or an iPod connected with it by Bluetooth, and you just play some like there's some like real creepy, like heavy breathing. Or did you ever watch Lost?
huh?
You didn't watch Lost?
No, I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm new to this, and Lost came out when I was in, elementary school, so I haven't.
All right. Well, on Lost, they crashed on the island, and there was these others that were there. They called them the others. Whenever they came across them in the jungle, it was like a whispering, like loads of people whispering. So it was like. So the only one thing I thought about with Bluetooth speakers, if you just play some creepy shit like that,
Yeah.
and even if you just had like two red LEDs pretend to be eyes, I mean that would people who are already probably under stress, it might come across your camp. I mean that'll probably scare the shit out of them. They'll probably go running. That's the only use I could think of for a Bluetooth speaker because.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But if
Especially,
it's
one that's solar.
but if it's got a charging capability on it, then I'm also with my preps. I'm thinking about things that have like a dual purpose. So I'm trying to get things that have got multiple uses for it, and then I don't need to carry something which does the job of the other thing. But I mean, like I said, I'm totally rethinking my preps this year. I'm totally working them from the ground up. Like literally, like I'm concentrating on what is going on my feet. Taking care of your feet, taking care of foot care items in my bug out bag, and then just everything from the ground up, really, because there's some big holes in my preps, and if I redo them, I'm gonna redo them better.
For sure.
But I mean, I don't have a list when I'm checking my preps. I just go through everything that's in a particular room, and my bug out bag. I'll just go into my bug out bag. I'll take everything out of it. I've got the manuals and the care instructions for all of the gear that I've got. So if I've got a particular piece of gear like the water straw that I've got, I'll look at the care instructions and the maintenance instructions for like my lifesaver bottle. I'll go through the maintenance instructions because then I'm not going to take well, I mean, I probably am. I've got all the maintenance instructions in my bug out bag for the pieces of equipment that I've got in there. But when I go through it and I check in my preps, I read the manual every time and I do it as per the manual so that it's ingrained in the brain,
Very good.
And also, if I've got any gear in there, I've got tools in my bag, my bug out bag. I'll use the tools in the bug out bag on the equipment that I'm checking. So I'll make sure the screws are tightened, but I'll use it using the tools that I'll have with me. There's no point getting your toolbox out in your house because you won't be taking that with you,
No, that makes sense. Yeah. I've always thought about that. People who, would say, "Oh, I'll have a vehicle. I've got this dirt bike or I've got this motorcycle or, I'll strap my bag to this ATV that I and my significant other will fit on and then we'll, head for the woods where we've got a second camp already set up. They put put thought and planning into a secondary location. Uh, but my thought is, what are you going to do once you're out in the woods? They've got, weapons, stuff for fire, camp, pup tents in their bag, but no mention of tools. I've always wondered, how people would consider that. They've got all of these things, but they don't bring any of the tools with them to maintenance them. How do you find a balance for yourself between conserving space yet having the tools that you need?
Well, I mean, I've only got so much gear with us, so
Hmm.
if if I've got a minimal amount of gear with us, then I only need a minimal amount of maintenance items for them. Um, that's another thing I'm going to completely reorganize is my tools and the things that I need to maintain, the stuff I'm taking with me, because I'm lacking in that area. I haven't got myself a field axe yet, but when I get a field axe, I'm gonna take like a puck sharpening stone with us, and I'll take the oil for the handle, but that's it, and the sharpening stone for the axe. It can be used for the knives as well.
Hmm.
This I just try and keep it real simple, and even when you're buying gear, uh, look at the type of screws that the gear uses. I mean,
Hmm.
if you've got old gear that's got crosshead, and then you go and get yourself something which has a flathead, well, you just got to take your flathead with you. But I mean,
Yeah.
you would want probably a couple of extra tools with you just for other people's gear, maybe. But I mean, I don't know. It's like you can load yourself up with a ton of gear, but then the amount of stuff you need to maintain it goes up as well. And
Yeah.
you don't really see that in preppers' videos. They put all this gear in their bag. They take nothing to maintain it with them.
Mhm.
You might see someone takes like a DC sharpening stone with them for their knife, but I mean that's it. I mean, people put like lifesaver bottles in the bug out bag, but did they take like the lubricant for the plunger? Because that needs to be taken care of. There's a rubber seal on it as well. Do they have a spare rubber ring?
Mhm.
Do they have a spare filter sponge for it? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very, and that's one of the biggest things I noticed. Like, it's great that you've brought a flashlight with you, but what will you do when the bulb burns out? What do you plan to do for batteries? Uh,
Well, there's still people
when will
use
you really use it?
there's still people using torches with the traditional bulbs in. Like, I mean,
Hmm.
there's still a lot of the old mag lights. I mean, they use the bulbs. People still use them.
Oh yeah.
Do they have a spare bulb with them? Probably not.
Hmm.
LED torches, it's not really so much of a thing because probably the LED and the torch will probably last way beyond the useful life of the torch. Actually,
Hmm.
it'll probably get compromised with water or the environment before the actual LED runs out. Or your batteries that you use in the torch would
Hmm.
probably have died out years ago. But the actual torch itself might work if you get some new batteries.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. Lately, I've kind of invested in pair with the solar charger that I've got with the Bluetooth speaker built in. There are actually rechargeable AA batteries on Amazon that charge via a phone cable rather than an outlet. And I've kind of entertained the idea of maybe picking a few of those up and testing the viability of, the solar solution that I have with recharging those batteries to see if maybe that's an option to get a mag light. Because I mean, we've got a large sanctuary in the church, just to give you an idea of how bright the thing gets. Uh, and it can accommodate approximately 400 people with a little more room to spare. And it's got a 200-foot high ceiling. When I go in there at night and turn the mag light on and point it at the ceiling, this is just a 2 AA mag light. I could see around the entire sanctuary with no problem at all. So being able to have that kind of a power for spotting, whether it's another person, if I'm trying to find somebody who's lost, who's strayed from camp, trying to hunt something, they can't find their way back. If I'm looking for something that I've dropped in my house. I mean, this is something I carry every day anyway, and I've got rechargeable batteries that recharge on a wall mount. You plug it into the outlet, pop the batteries in. But great for emergencies, great for everyday carry. Just I dropped my keys in the parking lot, I have to get them out from under the car. But really, I've also heard people talk about the viability of actually using the flashlight in an SHTF scenario. The idea that it's just going to draw attention to you, to what you've got. So really, I guess, yeah.
I'm going to turn myself down. I have to turn myself up again. Well, light discipline is obviously really important, but I carry a flashlight with me. I mean, we call them torches here in Great Britain, but I carry a torch with me every day. It's just part of my EDC. I carry it with me in the daytime. It's a 3-night TN12, so it's the ideal size. In the daytime, you can use it as a Kubaton. If you had to defend yourself, you could strike someone with it. They're definitely going to know they're getting hit by it. But then again, in the nighttime, you could use it as the torch, and it has its defensive use there from just being a bright, distracting light. I mean, if in shit hits the fan, if your torches do run out in your torch, don't just toss the torch away, because it's still a useful tool. I mean, these things are built tough, so you can use them as a handheld defensive option still.
Definitely.
But bugging in, you want to practice light discipline. I mean, for bugging in, all of my torches have moonlight modes.
They have okay.
Like a moonlight mode, so you're talking 0.3 to 0.5 lumens. But if it in a completely black room with no light, I mean, you can see perfectly fine with that. So all of my bugging in gear, that all has moonlight mode. I mean, I use a torch at work. It doesn't have a moonlight mode because it doesn't need a moonlight mode. I do security, so my torch just needs to be a big bright light. I don't need to be I need to be seen as a deterrent, so I don't need a moonlight mode on my torch at work. But in my bugging location I do, because I'm not going to broadcast. Let's say the power goes out for a week. I mean, everybody has a candle in their home, but the rest of my neighbours, they might have candles, but they only probably have 1 or 2 candles. Once they've burned out in a few hours, you don't want to be the only one on the street that has light pouring out of their property. Just because you can have light pouring out your property, it'd just be a lighthouse. You'd be a big beacon to someone. They're going to start looking at your property saying, well, Why have they got lights on and I haven't?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you need to get yourself like thick blackout curtains like they had in the war,
Yeah.
and moonlight modes on your torches.
Yeah, that makes very good sense. If somebody sees your light, you know, that's a signal of someone who was prepared. At least for that, might signal that you've got more stuff to that's of value. I think the biggest importance that I've seen people stress about prepping is minimizing yourself as a target, maximizing the efficiency of what you use, and that way you can extend it out as long as possible. Um, get as much use out of it, but again, make yourself as small a target as possible to avoid whatever threat there may be. You know, whether it's desperate people, people who just want what you have because they don't have it, or worst case, somebody who just wants to do harm in an environment where it doesn't seem like there's a lot of order. So yeah, very very clever on the blackout curtains. I have a few of those in my room actually. I used to work a late shift, and so keeping sunlight out was very necessary. I hadn't thought much about keeping light from getting out of the house, though. You know, keeping light out of the house during the day, not letting it get out of the house at night. That's something I hadn't considered before. Blackout curtains.
Yeah, thick curtains. Because the other advantage to thick curtains as well, like heavy duty ones, is they're also going to stop noise from leaking out of your property to the outside.
Very true.
So you've got to have both noise and light discipline if you're bugging in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
you don't want things. Um, you don't want things. If you've got like an empty room which just has hard surfaces in it, then like and wooden floors. I mean, even that people can hear. So you want to be in a room where the noise is as dampened down as possible, and heavy duty curtains on your windows so no noise gets out, or there's less likely chance of just moving around going out. And obviously thick so that if you do have any light in there, no light escapes. But then also the people that may be with you, they've got to have the discipline not to peek out of the curtains to see what's going on, because that'll give you away.
Mm-hmm.
And then it doesn't matter if you've got heavy duty curtains if somebody's going to be pulling them apart to see what's going outside.
Yep.
And then everyone else can see what's going in. They know that there's somebody in there. So
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think we'll probably end the live stream here. There's been no questions from anywhere. Twitter, I've asked on Twitter, nobody's asked anything, so nothing on the Preppers Discord. Although there was a good suggestion from Raza. He said zip ties might be a good option in your bug out bag.
Oh,
And
yeah,
zip ties are something I want to include, yeah.
yeah, zip ties. I know I've got, just in my EDC, because I handle electronics a lot, I've got, cable management ties that are more like twist ties that are made of a higher gauge wire with a rubber casing on the outside, but definitely zip ties. Um, have you seen the ones? They've got some that actually also have a manual release that you can activate so that you can reuse them. Some of the thicker ones. definitely.
Yeah, because I do have like some metal, um, like these metal cables, but they've got like a thread, so you can effectively either just make a loop out of one of them, like a secure loop, so you can quickly attach things to you, or you can put several together to make like a bigger loop. But the metal, the steel, so it's probably susceptible to rusting. Um, Plastic zip ties might be something a bit better and might be a little bit lighter as well.
It's true, keeping down on the weight.
But yeah, I think we'll end the live stream here. But thanks a lot for being on the. Well, it's
Yeah,
been a great
absolutely.
discussion, anyways. So even without no
It has
questions.
been.
But yeah, cheers
Yeah,
for if anyone's watching and or listening, then thanks for joining us. I think maybe we've got a
yeah,
couple of lurkers around, but you don't have to ask a question. That's no problem. But anyways, this is on every week, Prepper's Perspective, and so thanks for joining us, and thanks Mooney for being here.
yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no worries.